99% of Toyota's reputation rests on a handful of models. The problem is that most buyers can't tell which ones earned that reputation and which ones are quietly riding on it. After years of working on these cars, I've watched the same trucks roll into the shop with 300,000 miles and barely a complaint, while a few others come in needing major repairs before they've even hit 100,000. The badge on the hood is the same. The engineering underneath is not. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 worst Toyota models I'd tell my own family to avoid, and the 4 best ones that genuinely deserve every bit of the legend. Let's start with the ones that disappoint. The first Toyota I would steer you away from is the 2007 to 2009 Toyota Camry with the 2.4-liter 4-cylinder engine, internally known as 2AZFE. On paper, this is the most trusted sedan in America, the car that built Toyota's entire reputation for bulletproof reliability. In these specific model years, though, Toyota had a real problem with excessive oil consumption. The issue traces back to the piston rings and the oil control rings inside the engine block. These rings are supposed to scrape oil off the cylinder walls and keep it in the crankcase where it belongs, sealing the combustion chamber so the engine burns fuel and not oil. Owners would check the dipstick and find it nearly dry just a couple of thousand miles after a fresh fill and have no warning light to tell them anything was wrong. The dashboard oil light only triggers when pressure drops dangerously low, which is far too late. Toyota eventually acknowledged the problem and extended the warranty on it, but plenty of these engines were already damaged by the time owners realized what was happening. Running an engine low on oil starves the bearings and the camshafts of lubrication. Metal grinds against metal, and that is how a Camry that should have lasted 250,000 miles ends up needing a rebuild at 130,000 miles. There is a related issue on some of these cars as well, where the threads that hold the bolts for the cam-driven components could strip out of the soft aluminum block, an expensive repair on its own. If you are shopping used and you find one of these years, you can still buy it, but only after watching the oil consumption closely between changes and budgeting for the fix, if it shows up. The second one on my list is the 2012 to 2017 Toyota Prius V, specifically when it comes to the traction battery and a couple of nagging system weaknesses. Now, I want to be fair here, because the standard Prius is one of the most reliable cars ever built, and I will come back to that later. The Prius V, the larger wagon version with the extra cargo room behind the rear seats, is a different story in these years. The bigger, heavier body put more demand on the same hybrid system that Toyota carried over from the smaller hatchback, and the nickel-metal hydride traction battery, which sits under the rear cargo area, tends to degrade faster under that extra load. A hybrid battery is made up of many individual cells wired together, and as those cells age, they fall out of balance with one another. When the weakest cells start failing, you lose fuel economy first, the very thing you bought the car for, and then you start getting the dreaded red triangle of death warning on the dash, which means the hybrid system has shut down to protect itself. A replacement traction battery is one of the most expensive repairs you can face on a hybrid, and on a vehicle that was purchased specifically to save money on fuel. That is a painful irony. These years also had a higher rate of inverter coolant pump issues. The inverter is the component that converts the battery's direct current power into the alternating current that the electric drive motor uses, and it generates serious heat doing that job, which is why it needs its own dedicated cooling loop separate from the engine. When that coolant pump fails and the inverter starts overheating, the entire hybrid drivetrain is at risk of damage. The regular Prius hatchback of the same era holds up far better because it is not asking the hybrid system to haul around the extra weight. So if you want the Toyota hybrid experience, there are smarter ways to get it. The third Toyota I would be cautious about is the 2016 to 2018 Toyota Tacoma with the 3.5-liter V6 paired to the 6-speed automatic transmission. This one surprises people because the Tacoma has a cult following and holds its value better than almost any truck on the road. The issue here is not catastrophic failure. It is a frustrating drivability problem that Toyota never fully solved. These trucks suffer from what owners call transmission hunting and a noticeable hesitation at low speeds, especially when you are trying to accelerate gently from a stop or maintain a steady pace around 30 to 40 miles per hour. The transmission, working alongside the engine's direct injection fuel system, constantly shifts up and down looking for the right gear, and the truck lurches and stumbles in a way that feels broken even when it technically is not. Part of this comes down to how Toyota tuned the powertrain for fuel economy, keeping the engine in higher gears at lower revolutions per minute than the engine really wanted to be in, which left the truck feeling like it was always second-guessing itself. Toyota issued software updates to the transmission control module that improved it somewhat, but never eliminated it. On top of that, these years had reports of premature rear differential and rear axle leaks, where the seals that keep gear oil inside the rear axle housing would weep and let lubricant escape. None of this will leave you stranded the way an engine failure would. But for a truck in this price range, the driving experience falls short of what the Tacoma name promises, and a truck should feel confident, not hesitant. If you want a Tacoma, the earlier 2005 to 2015 generation with the simpler 4-speed and 5-speed automatics is the smarter buy. If you made it this far, then consider liking this video, giving it a thumbs up, and subscribing to my channel. This helps me bring you more honest car advice. Now let's talk about the Toyotas that actually earned the reputation, the ones I'd happily put my own money behind. The first is the Toyota Land Cruiser, particularly the 200 series built from 2008 to 2021. This is, without exaggeration, one of the most overbuilt vehicles ever sold to the public. The heart of it is the 5.7-liter V8 engine, the 3UR-FE, a motor that was engineered with enormous margins of durability built into every component. Everything about the Land Cruiser was designed to survive places where there are no dealerships, no tow trucks, and no second chances. The body-on-frame construction, where the body sits on top of a separate steel ladder frame rather than being welded into one unit, gives it the strength to absorb decades of abuse. The full-time four-wheel drive system sends power to all four wheels at all times, and the heavy-duty cooling components, including an oversized radiator and transmission cooler, were all designed for sustained punishment in deserts and mountains where overheating means death for an engine. These trucks routinely cross 300,000 miles, and many go far beyond that with nothing more than regular fluid changes and basic maintenance. United Nations agencies, aid organizations, and expedition outfitters across the world rely on the Land Cruiser precisely because it does not quit. The downside is the price, both new and used, because the whole world knows how good they are, and demand keeps values sky high. But if longevity is your priority and you can find a well-maintained one, almost nothing on the road will outlast it. The second Toyota I would recommend without hesitation is the Toyota 4Runner, especially the 5th generation that ran from 2010 onward. The 4Runner uses the 4.0-liter V6 engine, the 1GRFE, mated to a 5-speed automatic transmission, and this is one of the most proven combinations Toyota has ever produced. Part of what makes the 4Runner so reliable is almost ironic. Toyota left it relatively old-fashioned. While competitors rushed toward turbochargers, complicated touchscreen infotainment, and car-based unibody platforms to chase fuel economy and a more modern feel, the 4Runner kept its truck-based, body-on-frame design and a naturally aspirated engine with no turbo to fail and no direct injection carbon headaches. A turbocharger adds heat, boost pressure, and dozens of failure points, while a naturally aspirated engine like the 1GRFE simply breathes on its own and keeps running. That simplicity is exactly why these vehicles age so gracefully. The 5-speed transmission is conservative and unstressed because it has fewer gears and is not constantly hunting to squeeze out every fraction of a mile per gallon. It runs cooler and lasts far longer, which is a major reason it survives. People who buy 4Runners tend to keep them for 15 to 20 years, and the resale value reflects that confidence, often holding more of its original price than almost anything else in its class. If you want something that drives like a truck, handles serious weather and terrain, and almost refuses to die, this is the one I point people toward most often. The third is the Toyota Corolla, and here I am talking about the modern generation built from roughly 2014 onward, especially the latest version with the 2.0-liter engine. The Corolla is the car I recommend to people who simply want transportation that will never betray them. It's not exciting, and that's the entire point. The engine and the continuously variable transmission called CVT in the current generation were tuned conservatively for longevity rather than performance. A CVT uses a belt and pulley system instead of fixed gears. And while early CVT systems from various manufacturers earned a bad reputation, Toyota's approach has been deliberately gentle, even adding a physical first gear in the newest design to take stress off the belt during the hardest part of acceleration from a stop. The result is a car that will run reliably for 15 years with almost no drama. Parts are cheap and available everywhere. Mechanics in every town know how to work on them, and the fuel economy is excellent without needing a complicated hybrid system to achieve it. For a first car, a daily commuter, or a vehicle you hand down to your kids when they start driving, the Corolla delivers exactly what Toyota built its name on. The total cost of ownership over a decade, when you add up the purchase price, the fuel, the insurance, and the repairs, is among the lowest of any car you can buy. And the fourth, the one I'd argue is Toyota's single greatest achievement, is the standard Toyota Prius hatchback, particularly the 3rd and 4th generations from 2010 through 2022. I mentioned earlier that the Prius V wagon had its problems, but the regular hatchback is a completely different animal. This is the car that proved hybrids could be genuinely dependable, and it has the track record to back it up. Taxi fleets and rideshare drivers, the people who put the hardest miles on any vehicle, have pushed these cars past 300,000 and even 400,000 miles on their original hybrid systems. The 1.8-liter engine, the 2ZRF-XE, runs on the Atkinson combustion cycle, a design that trades a little power for efficiency and runs gentler on internal components by reducing the stress of each combustion event. Just as important, that engine is frequently shut off entirely in stop-and-go traffic, which dramatically reduces wear, because an engine that isn't running isn't wearing out. The electric drive motor handles the hardest part of city driving, the constant starting and stopping, sparing both the gasoline engine and the brakes. Even the regenerative braking system reduces wear on the brake pads, because the car slows itself by using the electric motor as a generator to recapture energy, instead of relying on friction much of the time. Owners of these cars often report going far longer than normal between brake jobs for exactly that reason. The nickel-metal hydride hybrid battery in these hatchbacks proved far more durable than skeptics ever predicted. And even when one does eventually need replacing, the cost has dropped considerably as the technology matured and reconditioned options became available. For pure cost per mile reliability, almost nothing touches a well-kept Prius hatchback. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, the pattern becomes clear. The Toyotas that disappoint are usually the ones where the company chased something new, a heavier hybrid body straining an existing system, a more complicated direct injection drivetrain, or an engine with a design flaw that slipped through quality control. The Toyotas that become legends are the ones built simply, conservatively, and with enormous margins of durability engineered in from the start. A Land Cruiser, a 4Runner, a Corolla, or a basic Prius hatchback will reward you for years if you simply keep up with the maintenance. The cars on the avoid list aren't worthless, and plenty of them are still on the road today, but they demand that you go in with your eyes open and your wallet ready for the known issues. The badge alone doesn't guarantee greatness. The engineering underneath is what separates the Toyotas that last from the ones that simply look the part. And now you know exactly which is which. If you're enjoying this video, consider watching this one where I'm sharing the used Toyotas that still have hundreds of thousands of miles left in them.